The GOAT is hanging them up, plus a first look at Super Bowl 56.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, NFL fans, and welcome into a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. I'm James Rapien. No Tony Wiggins today. He is busy covering the Senior Bowl, but he's going to have plenty of stories, and we're going to have plenty of coverage from the Senior Bowl. So you have to make Locked On NFL your first listen, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you're following along wherever you get your podcast because, well, there's a lot going on, and that's what you come to the Locked On Podcast Network for. And whether it's Super Bowl 56, which we're going to get to, we'll close the show with some of my thoughts. The team I cover, the team I talk about daily on Locked On Bengals, they've made it to the Super Bowl, which I think is a shock across the country, across the world. Not many people expected that. I will be honest, I didn't expect that. So I'll give you some of my unique thoughts as we look ahead to that matchup. We're going to be there next week, by the way, in Los Angeles for Radio Row, bringing you exclusive content. But I have to start with the news of the day. The news of Tuesday, it broke. And we knew it was coming after Saturday. It seemed pretty inevitable. Look, Adam Schefter, say what you want, man. Adam Schefter doesn't really get it wrong. And someone's going to say, oh, well, he got it wrong this one time. I trust that Adam Schefter is not going to run with a Tom Brady retirement story and be completely off base. And turns out he wasn't. Neither was ESPN's Jeff Darlington. Shout out to them for getting the scoop. Tom Brady retired. Tom Brady hanging them up. If you're watching on YouTube and you look over my right shoulder, you can see a picture of Tom Brady in a 12 Patriots jersey signed from early in his career. Look, I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. I'm not going to deny it or run from it or hide from it. The first time I saw him in person was earlier this season. I snuck down to Tampa Bay, was able to do so. The team I covered, the Bengals, they played on Sunday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they played on Monday night. So I was able to see them whoop up on the Giants. And thank goodness I did, because I hadn't gotten to see him in person. It's not like they play the Bengals regularly. And so it had been a while. And of course, the 1 year where I wasn't covering the Bengals over the past 6 years was the year that Brady was at Paul Brown Stadium. But look, there were a lot of people on Saturday, especially, that tweeted me because they know I'm a big Brady fan. And they were like, man, sorry, that must suck. And I'm like, no, it doesn't suck. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome because this dude played 22 years, okay? 7 Super Bowls, 10 Super Bowl appearances, 3 regular season MVPs, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, has the all-time records for passing yards, touchdowns, completions, and attempts. And not only that, he went to Tampa. He won a Super Bowl there. And then this year, look, it wasn't in the cards. They had a ton of injuries. There's no denying that. They were missing Tristan Wirfs in the playoff game. And I'm not making excuses, but it never really felt like their year, right? It always seemed like there was another injury or 2 injuries. It was just like, it never felt like their year. And so not shocked at all that they're not playing in Super Bowl 56. But he's leaving at damn near close to the peak of his powers at 44. Led the NFL in passing yards. Led the NFL in passing touchdowns this year. Led the NFL in completions and attempts. I would say he's the MVP. What does MVP mean? Most valuable. Most valuable. If you take Tom Brady out of Tampa Bay, they never win a Super Bowl. He changed everything there. What he did for that team, that organization. I mean, I don't know where the hell they go from there, but this isn't about Tampa Bay. This is about Tom Brady. And so if he's playing, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to win the MVP, but I would probably vote for him. And Packers fans, get mad all you want. Bengals fans might too, with Joe Burrow, whatever. Those are probably the top 3 in some order. To me, Brady completely changed what the Bucs do and proved everybody that said it was just Belichick and he was a system quarterback and all of those things, showed that wasn't the case at the latter part of his career. And he was still playing at an extremely high level. This wasn't, Tom to Tampa Bay wasn't Jordan with the Wizards, right? It wasn't Kobe post Achilles. It wasn't Allen Iverson with the Pistons. Most greats go out and they aren't close to their peak. It wasn't Peyton Manning in the last year with the Broncos. And I get it, they won the Super Bowl, but let's be honest here. Peyton Manning was throwing the ball about as far as I can today, and that is not very far when you're talking about an NFL quarterback. And so when I think about Brady's legacy, no, it didn't end with the Super Bowl, but he's got 7 of them. It ended the way you would want to end in any career, at any level, at any profession, at the peak of your powers. This wasn't fizzling into the night. This wasn't Brett Favre returning for one more year or switching to 7 different teams. Because I thought that too. I was like, well, why doesn't he just maybe try to go to Tennessee, right? Where the Super Bowl window's open. Or he could stay in Tampa Bay and they could recruit this guy or this guy and keep wiggling the cap room and kick the can down the line. And, it's an easy division, you'd say on paper right now. No, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to go out at 75% of his power. He's not at his prime anymore, but he's at 95% of it. Certainly numbers wise, he's as good as he's ever been. And so that's the part. The NFL and greats in the NFL usually go out not on top, not even close to the top. They max out what their greatness and then hang on because they think they have a little bit more. Everyone knows Jerry Rice played for the Oakland Raiders. Did you know that he went on to suit up for the Seattle Seahawks or the Denver Broncos? Did you know that? The Denver Broncos. Yeah, that happened. Greats play and bounce around, and it happens. And instead of that, instead of hanging on, instead of trying to play to 50, instead of doing that, he said, look, I've done everything I can do. I've won 7 Super Bowls. I have all of these records. Now I want some family time. And I think that's exciting. I think that's awesome. I think that even someone as singular focused as Tom Brady has enough perspective. And of course, his wife Giselle has been in his ear for years and years and years about this, but has enough perspective to say, okay, I've done enough. And it's not because he can't play anymore. It's not because he's not a top 5 quarterback anymore or a top 10 quarterback or a top 15 quarterback. Like a lot of those guys weren't. Brett Favre, was he a top 15 quarterback at the end? I don't know about that. Was it Peyton Manning? Certainly not. Ben Roethlisberger? Certainly not. Drew Brees? It's close, man. It's borderline. He was throwing 6-yard passes his final 3 years. And I'm not trying to knock these guys because they were all great. They're all legends. But Brady was still playing at this elite peak level. And he left, and he was older than all of them. And so to have that perspective, to play for as long as he did, to have all the success he had, congrats. That's all I can say is congratulations to Tom Brady. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see what's next for Brady, his legacy. There's been some speculation about the Patriots, and I want to get into that. I want to get into his announcement a bit because I think that that's an interesting part of this, who he mentioned, who he didn't mention, my thoughts on that, and then we'll get to Super Bowl 56. But first, I have to tell you about BetOnline because BetOnline is a one-stop shop for all of your betting needs. It's betonline.net, and you need to get there right now. From scores, totals, player performance props, and so much more. They have you loaded, stacked, and packed for Bengals Rams in 2 weeks in the big game at SoFi Stadium. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net has you covered for basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, and so much more. They're a one-stop shop. So you need to get there right now. Nowhere else. BetOnline.net. And make sure you wager because it's going to be fast. It's going to be easy. It's going to be simple. I use them. You should too. Again, betonline.net, where the game starts. All right, let's get to Tom Brady's announcement because who would you guess that he was going to thank? Instantly, almost instantly. You're like, of course he's going to thank Tampa Bay. Of course he's going to thank fans. Of course he's going to thank. But the first thing is, all right, well, where's Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft? Where's the Patriots? And this dude posted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slides, 8 slides, and not one of them mentioned the Patriots or Bill Belichick or Robert Kraft. And boy, oh boy, yeah, that is directly. I mean, he mentioned Alex Guerrero. He mentioned Tampa Bay. He mentioned St. Petersburg. He mentioned all of these different things, Jason Light and all of these guys, in Tampa Bay, and doesn't mention the gentleman that helped them and everybody in New England that helped him win 6 Super Bowls. There's a couple theories, and as I record this on Tuesday afternoon, we're not sure what's going to happen. I would imagine this, if I had to guess, if I had to predict it, it's because something bigger is coming when it comes to Tom Brady and the Patriots. And no, I don't say, I don't think he's going to like replace Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator or, unretire and go back to New England. I don't think that, but could he sign a 1-day contract and retire a Patriot? Absolutely. I could see that happening. Do I think that there's some level of pettiness with Bill Belichick? Sure. At the same time, I think Brady, now that he's done in making the decision to be done, he will rise above that, much like most professional athletes do. And so to me, and I was texting some, I don't want to, I'll just say someone that's covered the Patriots for a long time. And he said, look, Tom Brady's admitted multiple times that Robert Kraft is like a father to him, like a father. And so when you see that and you hear that, you can't thank him. And so to me, I think he's going to sign a 1-day contract with the Patriots. He's going to go there. He's going to have a news conference at the Patriots facilities. He's going to shake hands with Bill Belichick. He's going to shake hands with Robert Kraft. There's no other way this goes, right? There's no way Brady's he's going to walk away and not mention the Patriots. And he did after they thanked him. He said, thank you, Patriots Nation on social media, but not in his official announcement. Come on. I can't buy it. I won't buy it. But man, if he goes that route, holy smokes. Can you imagine? I can't. Not after the story. Think about it. The night he left New England, he made the decision he was going to leave the Patriots. He drove to Robert Kraft's house. And they live close to each other up there in that area. Drove to Robert Kraft's house and told him in person. You're telling me that he's not even going to acknowledge those guys. I think something bigger is happening. One of two things. Either that or maybe his video company, which does a great job, is going to make some kind of farewell video or something. And he, where he thanks, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick separately. But it is weird. It is odd nonetheless. The other thing here, and I was just thinking about it. And so I'm 30 years old. So for the majority of my life, do the math, 22 seasons, Tom Brady has been in the NFL. A lot of those, he's been a villain. And, it's been a lot of fun rooting for Tom Brady. I remember his Michigan days, man, when he was the comeback kid and he would lead them back. And I remember those days. I also remember thinking he didn't have a shot in hell to beat the Rams in the Super Bowl in 2001. I remember rooting for him in most of those I rooted for him against the Eagles, rooted for him against the Panthers. I wasn't necessarily rooting for or against him against the Rams. You just didn't know what to expect with that team. You didn't know much about them yet. And as a team, and you just were like, come on, there's no way they're going to shut down this Rams offense. Well, it turns out they did. But to me, it's wild because everyone feels a certain way about Brady. If Tom Brady gets mentioned to me, I smile. Other people are like, man, I hate that guy. And that's what's so much fun about him. And, who's going to be the next Tom Brady? A lot of people say Patrick Mahomes. Well, he's really likable. And no one hates Patrick Mahomes right now. Some might say Joe Burrow. Well, he's really likable. No one hates Joe Burrow right now that I can realize. Josh Allen, does anyone hate Josh Allen? And so that's the part that I think is going to be interesting. Brady was a villain to a degree. And not many people hated Peyton Manning. Brady was on such a level with him and Belichick. It was like, Darth Vader and the evil Sith Lords. And excuse me, I'm ignorant with Star Wars, but that's what it was. And that's how they were viewed. And so, it's kind of wild to see him go because everybody feels some type of way about Tom Brady. Everybody. And it might be good, it might be bad, but you feel a certain way and it makes you emotional and it leads to debates and it leads to fun and it leads to drama and it leads to everything that comes with being a sports fan. And so that's the other part of this that we lose out on now, that we don't have now. Next year, the Bengals are supposed to play the Buccaneers. Well, damn, I wanted to cover Joe Burrow versus Tom Brady. Now we don't get to see that. We saw Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady a couple of times. We don't get to see that as much as we wanted, I don't think, right? It sucks. And at the same time, you look at it, and when Tom Brady, got into the league, some of these stars that are playing in the Super Bowl weren't even alive or were toddlers that don't even remember Brady at Michigan, don't even remember Brady falling to the 6th round, all of that stuff. And, the other thing I'll say, and this is kind of the debate, this is kind of the argument. Anytime someone said, man, I like Peyton Manning, he's so likable. And I don't dislike Peyton Manning, so don't take this as an attack. This is just my view of things. Everyone views Tom Brady like he was the golden child. Like he was this guy who was born with a silver spoon and had it all, and that was it. And when you talk to players that played with him, that's certainly not the case. And in fact, for years, it's been like Peyton Manning's the good guy, the nice guy. Tom Brady's this, again, villain. And I've always said to people that say that, and again, this is not an attack on Manning, because I think you can do this without attacking the other side. Whose dad was an NFL legend? Oh, it was Archie Manning. Whose brother was also a Super Bowl champion? Oh, Eli Manning. I mean, you just look at it, that alone versus Tom Brady. Oh, who got drafted first over? Peyton Manning. Meanwhile, Tom Brady falls to the 6th round, and he goes to a place that hadn't won. That, say what you want, they hadn't won. I know they went to the Super Bowl in 97. They did not win. And then, man, there were so many people in Boston like, man, Belichick should have stayed with the Jets. If you go back and you read and feel what it was like that first Super Bowl season, before that first Super Bowl season, how the Bengals beat the Patriots. And this was when the Bengals were awful that year before the Patriots went on to win the Super Bowl. But my point is Brady was a 6th round pick, overcame that, went to a situation that, ended up being great because of the coach he was with. But at the time, you didn't know that, overcame that, suddenly found himself in the Super Bowl, took advantage of that opportunity, and has slowly worked his way up to be the GOAT, unquestionably, undoubtedly the best quarterback of all time. And for years and years, he took less money. For years and years, he would try to get guys to stick around if he could, right? Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. He's turning these guys that weren't outside of Randy Moss and Rob Gronkowski. What Hall of Famer was he throwing to? And I'm saying outside of that, he didn't even win a Super Bowl with Moss. Like this dude, and I'm not saying he didn't have a lot to work with, but my point is he was counted out time and time again, and he went from underdog to the dog to top dog to the GOAT. He transformed from a dog to a GOAT. And so that's where it comes from. This guy wasn't given everything. I think back to that first Super Bowl run, Terry Bradshaw sitting there, Fox Sports ahead of the Super Bowl, in that 2 weeks leading up. And he's interviewing Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady. And it's announced that Tom Brady is going to be the starter. And Terry Bradshaw's like, well, what do you drive? What kind of car do you drive, Drew Bledsoe? And Bledsoe's like, yeah, Maserati or something insane, right? This unique vehicle. And Tom Brady's like, pickup, Ford pickup. I know it feels different now, but that's where they came from. That's it. That's the difference, right? He never had all that stuff until he got it, and he earned it. And not to say that Peyton Manning didn't earn it or any of these Drew Brees didn't, or all these guys, of course, they had their people doubted them at times and all that stuff. But that's what I think of when I think of Tom Brady. I think of a guy that overcame a ton to get to that position and then worked extremely hard to get better and better and better. And one day he looked up and he was the best. That's how I view Tom Brady. Up next, will the man that delivered the final loss of Tom Brady's career, Matt Stafford, will he win Super Bowl 56 and get his first ring, or will it be Joe Burrow? I'll give you my first look at Super Bowl 56. Unique look, since I'll be covering the game in less than 2 weeks at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. But first, I have to tell you about Built Bars, because Built Bars are the #1 protein bar on the planet. They're high in protein, low in sugar, low in calories, perfect for you. So it doesn't matter, what flavor you're craving or what you're looking for. Maybe you want a little mint chocolate. Maybe you want blueberry muffin. Maybe you're looking for one of the limited time flavors, or right now they got the cookies and cream, baby. Cookies and cream is back. You're getting a protein bar made with 100% real chocolate that tastes great and has great macros. That's going to fit your diet, or going to fit the healthy snack profile that you're looking for. Or maybe you just want a protein punch after your workout. Built Bar can be that for you. So go to built.com right now, use promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's dive into Super Bowl 56 a little bit, and we can talk more about it next week. But to me, this matchup is going to come down to a few things, right? Aaron Donald in that Los Angeles Rams pass rush. Can the Bengals withstand that and keep Joe Burrow upright? And it's going to be a conversation, a talking piece, time and time and time again over the next couple of weeks. But that's the first thing that came to mind when the Rams beat the 49ers on Sunday night. And I was at Arrowhead in Kansas City, writing about the Bengals. I'm like, all right, Aaron Donald, he's a bad man. So that's the first thing. Other things, and again, I'm just going to gloss over these things because you're going to hear a ton about it over the next couple of weeks. I just want to give you some of my initial thoughts, an initial look. The other thing for the Bengals offense is going to be, all right, Jaylen Ramsey versus Jamar Chase. We know that Jamar Chase is a huge, huge part of that Bengals offense. And yeah, Cincinnati's won when Chase hasn't had explosive plays, or when Chase hasn't been as involved. But even last week, he didn't have a huge game. But you know what he did have? A critical 2-yard touchdown where he just rose up, made a catch, made a huge play, contested play that put the Bengals in position to tie that game after trailing 21-3. Can he do that against Jaylen Ramsey, who's widely considered the best cornerback in football? So that's a matchup I'm excited to see. On the flip side, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. versus the Bengals secondary. I think that's a great one. Odell certainly in sync with Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp has played as well as any receiver, if not been the best receiver in all of the league this year. Certainly numbers wise has been that. And so when you look at that, how do the Bengals combat it? Because right now they've had great secondary play, I would say, over the course of the playoffs, specifically Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates, the star safety, number 30, if you don't know him, has played insane over the past couple of weeks, the first three postseason games. Hasn't had a great year, but has really turned it on in the playoffs. It was almost like a light switch where he flipped the script and has played at an elite level. They're going to need that again. But they're also going to need their cornerbacks, Chidobe Awuzie, Eli Apple, Mike Hilton, to be able to stick with Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. And it's one thing to stick with one of them, but then you have the other one, and then you got Van Jefferson. And so the Rams have a lot of weapons. Who knows? Tyler Higbee might be able to suit up. He's battling that MCL injury. They have a lot of weapons. But if you can keep those guys in check a bit, we've seen it time and time again. Matthew Stafford's going to leave a ball or two out there. And so will he make that mistake? Will he make that bad play, that interception, potential interception that he should have thrown? And, the 49ers are kicking themselves for not securing that and hauling that one in the fourth quarter on Sunday night. So that's one. Then the other thing here, and the Bengals have been good against the run, but Cam Akers just looks explosive. I cannot believe he's playing at the level he's playing at. He just looks almost faster post Achilles, and he came back so fast, 5.5 months on the field, making a difference. I just, he's certainly a difference maker. And then the other thing, injuries to watch, the Bengals, CJ Uzama left with an MCL sprain as well in his left knee in the AFC Championship game. That hurt the Bengals offense a decent amount. And so can they survive without him, without having that pass catcher over the middle of the field? Joe Burrow's great in the intermediate part of the field. They could certainly lean on him some, especially if he's not going to have a ton of time to throw. Leaning on that intermediate part of the field could be huge, but it's going to be a little harder if you don't have CJ Uzama. So certainly something to keep in mind there as well. But that's those are some of the initial thoughts. It's crazy. The other thing here is the Bengals, they've settled for way too many field goals. Evan McPherson's kicked 12 field goals. They've only scored 5 touchdowns in the red zone in 3 playoff games. That number has to go up if they're going to win. You're going to have to score against the Rams, because the Rams are certainly going to score, I think. And There's going to be so many storylines, the Sean McVay versus Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor's part of the Sean McVay coaching tree, all of those things. You're going to hear that a ton this week and into next week. The other thing you're going to hear a lot of, certainly if you're in those markets, but I think there'll be a national feature on it too. Andrew Whitworth, the man the Bengals decided not to pay at left tackle. He left after the 2016 season, is still playing at an elite level for the Rams, is now part of their, second Super Bowl run. They went to the Super Bowl in 2018, making a run here again. And it's like, man, Andrew Whitworth is still playing at an elite level. And the Bengals, the team that let him go, yeah, their offensive line is still searching a bit. Not as much at left tackle as other spots. Their guard play is really concerning, but not as dire as it's been in recent years with Jonah Williams kind of stabilizing that left tackle spot. But they let Andrew Whitworth go, and Joe Burrow stayed with Andrew Whitworth after he had surgery from Dr. Neil Elatrosh, who's the Rams doctor. He's also operated on Andrew Whitworth. So there's a lot of ties there, the LSU tie between Whitworth and Burrow and Chase. So it's interesting. It's going to be fun, and it's exciting. And I hope nationally you're as interested in this game as I am here locally in Cincinnati, because to me, there's a lot of stars on the Rams side, and yet you have this young team on offense for the Bengals. And they don't know what they don't know, right? Whether it's Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase or the kicker Evan McPherson and T Higgins, all these guys. Plus, you have veterans. You have a Tyler Boyd on offense. You have a Joe Mixon. They've been through some of the wars and some of the struggles for the Bengals. And then the flip side, veterans that have been on good teams but might not have necessarily made it to a Super Bowl until this year. Mike Hilton, Von Bell, Trey Hendrickson, Chidobe Awuzie. So the list goes on and on there. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I'm excited for it. Make sure you make Locked On NFL your first listen. For more on the Super Bowl 56, we're going to have you covered all week, this week, all week, next week on the Locked On Bengals podcast. Also check out Locked On Rams, of course, wherever you get your podcasts. It's free. It's available. Plus it's on YouTube. So Tony Wiggins was out this week. He'll be back next week. And until then, I'm James Rapien signing off. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On NFL.